Before we dissect Keith Urban, we absolutely have to unpack Nicole Kidman's tragic pre-Keith era. Because to fully grasp what their messy romance actually means, you must understand the sheer wreckage she crawled out of. Nicole Kidman wasn't just a Hollywood A-lister. She was a woman who completely surrendered her soul to a marriage. 10 years, 2 adopted kids, a life carefully constructed alongside the single biggest movie star on the planet. And then, boom! Tom Cruise filed for divorce in 2001, shockingly, brutally, with zero warning. She literally found out from the media. Let that sink in. 10 years of your life, and you learn it's dead via a trashy news headline. Insiders say she looked completely dead inside, like her soul had left her body. She kept grinding. She always kept grinding. But under those blinding red carpet lights, she was dragging an invisible, crushing grief that words can't even describe. Then came the ultimate heartbreak. A secret pregnancy she desperately prayed for, tragically miscarried amidst the divorce chaos. She only whispered about it years later, forcing everyone to lean in just to catch her broken words. She confessed losing that baby shattered her entire world, and she endured that agony completely isolated. The public only saw Nicole Kidman, the untouchable cinematic goddess in a gorgeous gown, clutching her Best Actress Oscar for The Hours in 2003. That breathtaking, tear-stained image became immortalized in Hollywood lore. But behind closed doors, she was frantically rebuilding her life from ash. She buried herself in work, Moulin Rouge, the others, blockbuster after blockbuster. It was like if she paused for a single second, the dark depression would swallow her whole. Friends claimed she was fiercely unbreakable. But even the toughest icons break from carrying a shattered life alone. She once muttered in a vintage interview, "I just wanted someone to choose me." 5 agonizing words that held the crushing weight of her entire existence. Then, at a random 2005 charity gala, a total stranger approached with a smile that caught her completely off guard. An Australian guitar player with cozy eyes and an easy laugh, he was the polar opposite of her toxic Hollywood past. His name was Keith Urban, and something about him instantly clicked. But what Nicole didn't see coming, what nobody warned her about, was that behind that wholesome country boy facade, Keith Urban was drowning in his own secret hell. A terrifying, dark addiction that was about to become her nightmare too. Life-altering moments rarely come with a dramatic warning siren. You don't get a cinematic musical swell or a cosmic shift. You just meet a person. And only in hindsight do you realize your universe fractured in that single, ordinary second. For Nicole Kidman, that exact fracture happened in June 2005 at a glitzy charity gala in New York City. It was the typical environment where Hollywood royalty and music stars fake smile for flashbulbs in expensive tuxedos with rehearsed grins, everyone playing a manicured character for the paparazzi. Nicole was there doing her standard routine, showing up, playing gracious, and wearing the heavy emotional armor she spent 4 agonizing years building after Tom Cruise vaporized her sanity. And then Keith Urban strutted in. He wasn't the heaviest hitter in the room, and he wasn't desperate to be. There was a shocking chillness to him, like he didn't need Hollywood validation to exist. Eyewitnesses say he glided through the superficial crowd differently, laughing genuinely without performing. Nicole immediately locked eyes. They got a brief introduction and swapped a few casual words. Nothing explosive, no visible lightning bolt, but a spark definitely ignited, something deeply comforting and warm that she hadn't experienced in an eternity. Keith was mesmerized too, obviously, but insiders insist it wasn't the glamorous movie star that hooked him. It was a profound exhaustion masked by strength in her gaze, a look he knew intimately because he stared at it in his own mirror. They sparked a connection, dialing into late-night phone marathons filled with endless deep dives about music, family, and the isolating horror of feeling completely abandoned inside a life that looks flawless to the public. She was 37 and he was 37. The media would definitely squawk about them. The media always squawks. But Nicole was completely done living for public approval. By late 2005, she knew this was the real deal, a miracle she never expected to find after surviving her past trauma. And on June 25, 2006, precisely 1 year after their initial meeting, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban gathered their inner circle on a dramatic cliffside in Sydney, Australia, to say their vows. The wedding photos are absolutely jaw-dropping. Nicole in an elegant champagne gown, Keith staring at her like she was a literal angel he couldn't believe he snagged. It's the kind of raw imagery that makes total strangers weep over a magazine spread. Guests swore the energy was entirely pure, human, and authentic. No Hollywood PR stunt. Just a raw wedding between two deeply damaged souls who somehow crashed into each other amid the wreckage of life. It was supposed to be their happily ever after. And initially, it was. But a mere 4 months later, a massive bombshell completely obliterated their marital bliss. 4 months. That's exactly how long the fantasy survived before reality struck. 4 months after their picturesque Sydney wedding, Keith Urban checked into a Nashville rehab facility, and the public finally learned the truth. The demonic secret he had been harboring way before Nicole ever crossed his path was a raging addiction. Keith Urban had been desperately battling severe alcohol and drug abuse for decades. Long before the stardom, long before stadium tours, country music awards, and obsessive fans, it haunted him like a permanent shadow through every single milestone, never fading no matter how blinding his fame became. Close friends reveal he had fought the beast before, managing stretches of sobriety where he genuinely thought he won. But addiction is a patient predator. It waits quietly in the shadows of your happiest moments, whispering. And somewhere between the wedding vows and the honeymoon bliss, the whispers became deafening. Nicole noticed the unraveling in slow motion, the way spouses always do. Not through a sudden explosion, but via subtle, undeniable red flags. A vacant look in his eyes, an eerie, emotional distance during conversations. Moments where the man she worshipped seemed to glitch like a dying light bulb. She later addressed this nightmare with a brutal honesty that is genuinely painful to hear. She admitted feeling utterly terrified and confused because she loved him deeply, yet realized she couldn't fix him. You cannot cure someone else's addiction. You can love them through hell, but they have to do the heavy lifting. What she pulled off next proved exactly what Nicole Kidman is made of. She didn't bolt. She didn't summon divorce attorneys, leak tabloid spin to salvage her brand, or distance herself like typical Hollywood elite do when real life gets messy. She sat in the trenches with him, wept with him, and then set a fierce boundary out of pure love. She stated bluntly, "If you want this marriage and the future we're building, you get professional help right now." And Keith Urban, to his absolute credit, surrendered. He checked into the Betty Ford Center in October 2006 voluntarily and courageously, fully aware his dirty laundry was about to be aired globally. The media response was immediate and savage, the exact kind of vulture-circling coverage that exposes a star at their absolute lowest on every supermarket tabloid. But Nicole stood by him like an absolute rock, quietly and fiercely. She braved the facility visits, anchored him through withdrawals, and became the ultimate partner. It completely redefined their bond. But here's the massive twist the media completely ignores. What Nicole confessed years later about the psychological toll of that trauma was something absolutely nobody anticipated. There's a clean, sanitized version of this narrative that ends perfectly. Boy stumbles, girl saves him, boy gets clean, and they ride into the sunset. Cue the credits! But real life is messy, and Nicole Kidman, authentic to her core, never sold that fairy tale. Keith emerged from rehab fundamentally shifted, quieter, entirely present, like a man who stared into the abyss and chose to step back. Onlookers noted he seemed instantly lighter and profoundly grateful, fully aware of the life he almost incinerated. For a minute, it was pure bliss. They snatched up a Nashville estate, engineering a grounded reality far away from the toxic Hollywood machine Nicole endured for decades. Slower, cozier, peaceful. Keith strummed guitar on the porch. Nicole whipped up dinners. Basic human moments that feel like miracles when you've survived absolute chaos. In 2008, their daughter Sunday Rose arrived. Nicole was 40. She openly sobbed in the delivery room, not just from euphoria, but from the sheer weight of the trauma she outlived to reach that moment. Then in 2010, Faith Margaret completed the family. From a distance, it looked like the ultimate Hollywood ending. But Nicole refuses to fake perfection. In raw, intimate interviews during that era, she started exposing the complicated machinery behind the glossy headlines. She confessed to a permanent, low-key terror that haunts you after navigating a partner's addiction, a constant hypervigilance humming in the background of your best days. You track things normal people miss: a sudden shift in energy, a distant stare, a moment where they drift away. She explicitly labeled it hypervigilance, always scanning, always policing, not from zero trust, but because love makes you absolutely terrified of losing the peace you bled for. She confessed to the peace you bled for. She confessed to brutal years where the extreme pressure of two colossal careers, two toddlers, his fragile recovery, and her own unhealed trauma caused deep fractures. Not a total break, but dangerous cracks. They endured grueling stretches apart. Her on global movie sets, him on stadium tours, with nothing but phone screens keeping them connected for weeks. Those quiet gaps, she admitted, were the loneliest depths she ever navigated, and she was already a master of loneliness. The tabloid vultures started circling again, leaking rumors of extreme tension and a dying marriage running on fumes. And Nicole felt every bit of it. The agonizing weight of a romance being pulverized by the demanding, incompatible realities of two mega careers. She once confessed with chilling calmness that there were moments she genuinely thought they were done. The lack of drama in her admission made the reality hit like a freight train. But behind closed doors, a massive confrontation was brewing, one that would force a final, terrifying choice to either salvage everything or burn it to the ground. Every breaking marriage hits a wall where silence becomes a weapon, where the unsaid baggage becomes too heavy to lug around, and where someone finally drops the polite act and says, "This is the disaster we are in. This is what I require. And this is what happens if you don't step up." So, Nicole Kidman hit that exact wall. And her next move required more raw guts than any Oscar-winning performance. She has never explicitly used the word ultimatum. She's far too elegant and protective of her privacy. But decoding her public reflections makes the message crystal clear. A massive reckoning went down. Circle insiders confirmed that in the early 2010s, the marriage was on life support due to profound emotional drift. The kind of drift that creeps in so covertly, you don't notice it until you're staring at your soulmate and realizing they're a total stranger. Keith was trapped on a never-ending tour loop while Nicole was stacking movie roles back to back, leaving their daughters to grow up in the calendar gaps. In the gears of their massive fame, the marriage was being ground to dust. Nicole staged an intervention. The exact dialogue remains locked between them, but the aftermath tells the story. Keith Urban completely halted, audited his entire existence, and reordered his priorities with the brutal honesty only a former addict who almost lost his soul could possess. He canceled tours, locked his schedule around his family, and showed up as a radically intentional husband and father, like a man reminded at the final second what actually matters. And Nicole completely stripped down her walls. For the first time, she started talking to the media with shocking, uncurated transparency. No PR spin, just raw truth. She detailed the agony, the terror, and the moments she literally mourned her marriage while still wearing the ring. That specific grief, mourning a living relationship that is actively slipping through your fingers, is uniquely agonizing. She normalized their couples therapy, learning to scream the hard truths instead of choking on them, and rebuilding intimacy through conscious choice rather than emergency damage control. Keith's entire demeanor shifted in interviews whenever her name came up, his voice softening like a man handling priceless glass because he knows what it feels like to almost smash it. He explicitly stated, dropping everyone's jaws, that Nicole literally saved his life. Not in a cinematic swoop, but daily, by refusing to let him fade into the dark. And she mirrored that intensity, confessing he taught her how to safely accept love again. After decades of self-preservation, armor, and defensive walls, his patience wore down her fear. Two damaged souls choosing survival together, especially when it was hell. It felt like the final boss had been beaten. But then Nicole dropped a final series of truths that made the entire industry go completely silent. There is a quiet heroism that doesn't need viral meltdowns or manufactured tabloid drama. It's the unbothered bravery of a woman in her 50s who has survived enough trauma to completely stop giving a damn about Hollywood's polished expectations. Nicole Kidman unlocked that exact energy, and the world leaned in to listen. It started with subtle cracks in her media persona, pauses that hung in the air too long, thoughts trailing off into heavy silences, a look that signaled the real story was far heavier than the soundbite. Then came the unfiltered interview that caught the public completely off guard. Nicole dismantled her marriage with an honesty so raw it felt intrusive, like spying on a private bedroom conversation. She exposed the lingering ghosts of addiction, the permanent hypervigilance, and the terrifying reality that the disease could theoretically snatch him back at any second. She confessed that the untouchable, elegant Nicole Kidman persona was just an exhausting suit of armor she wore to survive. She detailed how motherhood cracked her ribcage open, explaining how Sunday in Faith taught her the terrifying, boundaryless nature of unconditional love, a love that makes you infinitely stronger yet completely defenseless. And then she dropped a line about Keith that instantly went viral. She revealed that he actually sees her, not the Oscar winner, the icon, or the media projection. He sees the fragile girl underneath the fame, the one who still panics, gets lonely in crowded rooms, and wrestles with the trauma of past divorces, miscarriages, and profound grief. And he stays anyway. She concluded that after the Tom Cruise wreckage, the public mourning, the addiction battles, and the near collapses, what she and Keith constructed is the most terrifyingly honest relationship of her life. Never flawless, but fiercely chosen every single day. If this deep dive into their raw reality moved you, do me a favor and smash that like button right now to help spread real stories. And hit subscribe because we have some massive drops coming up next. Keith Urban actually caught the interview after someone texted him the footage. Reports say he watched the entire clip alone in absolute silence. Then he immediately dialed her number. The exact conversation remains completely private, but sources close to the camp say that after that specific call, a permanent peace settled over their home. It was as if a door that had been painfully unlatched for decades finally clicked shut for good. Nicole Kidman outlived trauma that would have utterly vaporized most individuals. A savage public divorce, hidden miscarriages, and steering a partner through addiction while wrestling with her own demons. Yet she is still here, dominating, choosing, and refusing to let her scars define her legacy. She once mused that some people enter your life solely to snap you back into your own skin. Keith Urban reminded Nicole Kidman of her power, and Nicole Kidman quite literally dragged Keith Urban back from the grave. Two broken, scarred, beautiful humans stubbornly choosing each other against all odds. Now that is the ultimate Hollywood love story. Not a flawless fairy tale, but the deliberate, grueling, gorgeous choice to stay. Just choice to stay.